Right.
Where did they all go?
Don't know. Oh, here we are.
There's
It takes time,
Colleen.
probably.
And Colleen, I'm going to promote to panelist.
Doreen is here.
Oh, yay, Doreen. Doreen's in the Phoenix area here and is a
Oh,
good friend of mine. Hi, Doreen. Let's see.
enjoying the sunshine.
Yeah, it's 70 degrees right now here.
Oh, wow. It's foggy here,
Hmm.
but we still don't have snow.
And we'll get started here. All right. So hello and welcome to EIHR's 2024-2025 webinar series, Human Rights in the Arts, Resistance, Activism, Healing. I am Kim Klett, Deputy Executive Director of the Educators Institute for Human Rights. If you haven't already, feel free to put where you are joining us from in the chat box. So I'd like to tell you just a little bit about EIHR. Taking lessons from the Holocaust and other historic human rights violations, EIHR develops teaching materials, convenes training workshops and summits, and supports educator networks to give secondary students a deeper understanding of how egregious conflicts arise and evolve, how justice is served, and most importantly, how we can prevent future atrocities. EIHR provides these webinars and other programs at no cost to you, and we are happy to do so. However, if you would like to donate to help us with our work, we would appreciate it. We are putting the link for donations into the chat box, and thank you in advance if you are able to contribute. Please visit our website as well to find our many resources. This year's theme for our webinar series was chosen by our viewers. The arts are such an important part of our lives, no matter what might be happening in the world. Think about the way that art can transform our emotions and our thinking, how we can use art to share our voices and ideas, and how it can act as a form of resistance when we are oppressed or mistreated. We have many exciting speakers and artists who will present monthly from now through April, and we hope you can join us for the entire series. Next month on Sunday, December 8th, we will hear from a panel of Assyrian artists who will discuss their various art forms and how they help heal and spread awareness. And we have even more artists and speakers in the new year, so stay tuned. We are dropping the link for next month's webinar in the chat box where you can register. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the land where EIHR's office resides. EIHR respectfully acknowledges the Piscataway and Necauchunk or Anacostan people and the elders both past and present throughout the generations who have stewarded the land where EIHR gathers. As you listen today, please feel free to drop questions into the chat box. Nataliia has said that she welcomes questions along the way. We also will send a follow-up email with the recording of the program as well as any resources that are mentioned. And remember that you can watch past webinars on EIHR's YouTube channel, and that link will also be put in the chat box for you. And now I would like to introduce our guest today, Nataliia Naiavko, who is based in Edmonton. She has taught for 24 years in Ukraine and serves as a special language advisor. She is a United States Holocaust Memorial Museum Teacher Fellow dedicated to the prevention of mass atrocities and building sustainable peace. She has a particular interest in Ukrainian history and international equity education. Over the last 15 years, Nataliia has helped organize numerous activities and projects on human rights, youth engagement, and foreign language education. She was a Ukraine National Fellow in the Teaching Excellence and Achievement, or TEA, program administered by IREX and the U.S. Department of State's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. As part of that program, Nataliia studied curriculum design at George Mason University. She also completed the Teaching English to Young Learners online course from the University of Maryland. So Nataliia, thank you so much for being with us here today, and it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Kim, for this wonderful presentation. Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here today with you. So today we are going to speak about the Holodomor through the arts. I believe that art cannot be fully appreciated without an understanding of the Holodomor as a historical event and its impact on the Ukrainian society. Given the general lack of familiarity with the Holodomor, I have included some background information on this historical context of the Holodomor. So, Holod in Ukrainian, the Holodomor consists of two words, Holod and Morete. Holod means starvation. Morete in Ukrainian means to kill. So Holodomor is killing by starvation. It defines the horrific tragedy of the historical genocide committed against the Ukrainian people by the Soviet regime under Joseph Stalin. And actually, in Ukraine, there were a number of Holodomors. That was the most massive Holodomor, which we speak about, which happened in the 1932-1933. And you can pronounce Holodomor. So it was the artificial famine, which was orchestrated by the Stalin regime in the 1932-1933. Despite the millions of people who perished, the Holodomor has not been part of a public consciousness in the Soviet states, especially when compared to some other atrocities like the Holocaust and the Armenian or Cambodian or Bosnian genocides. This is not an accident. It is due in good measure to efforts of denial and erasure by the Soviet Union, Russia in particular. The issue of genocide holds particular significance for many involved in researching the Holodomor. The question is complicated by various definitions of genocide and how different scholars apply them. Raphael Lemke was the first who coined the word genocide, states that the Holodomor is the case of genocide, of destruction, not of individuals only, but a culture and a nation. That was not only about a definite group of people, but the culture, the language itself, and the people. And that is the classic example of Soviet genocide, its longest and broadest experiment in Russification, because the place where the Holodomor happened was then populated by people displaced from remote areas from Russia into Ukraine. Ukraine is the largest country in Europe, one of the largest countries in Europe, and it's a Texas-sized nation along the Black Sea to the west of Russia. And on this map, you can see that those highlighted in red areas were the areas where the Holodomor happened. Um, you can see that it was spread all over Ukraine, especially to the eastern part. And what I like to mention here, this is exactly the area where we have military, where we have the war happening right now. I wouldn't say that this is military operation. This is actually the war itself, and where this genocide is going on right now. At that time, Ukraine was the breadbasket of Europe, and in Ukraine, we have 1/3 of the world's black soil. It is the richest soil in the world, and therefore it provides lots of beneficial environment for the grain to grow. Western Ukraine was under Polish rule at that time. So in 1922, most of Ukraine was forcibly incorporated into the Soviet Union. Of course, Ukrainian people resisted that because they always were struggling for independence. Farmers, especially farmers, they did not want to give their land just voluntarily. They wanted to continue being farmers, but they were considered to be the enemies of the regime. And Stalin targeted the rural population, villages inhabited by ethnic Ukrainians who preserved the Ukrainian culture, language, and the spirit of independence. So that was not only about the land, that was not only about the grain, that was about the culture, the language, and the spirit of independence. If we look at the Stalin's reason, that the reasons behind the Holodomor were to um, annihilated a significant part of the Ukrainian population, openly resisting Soviet repressive policies in Ukraine, to terrorize the surviving Ukrainian population into submission to the Soviet totalitarian regime, to provide funds for the Soviets' industrial expansion of and purchase of machinery in the West from the sale of expropriated Ukrainian grain and other produce. Those farmers from Ukraine were considered to be kulaks. So the farmers were considered, as I mentioned, the enemies of the Soviet regime, and those farmers were kulaks. It meant that they had to give all their equipment, all their cattle, everything to the collective farmers. This collectivization was not accepted by the Ukrainian people who were always struggling for independence. Ukraine was one of the only Soviet republic whose borders were also sealed at that time. People could not leave the country. They could not go abroad. They could not flee. Moreover, they could not even go, the people from the villages could not even go to the cities or towns at that time because they needed to have a passport. And those peasants, the people from the villages, from countryside, they were not allowed to have a passport. Only in 1960s they were able to get a passport of the citizen, and they had to stay on the field, and they could not even escape these atrocities. Why is the Holodomor virtually unknown in the West? For the next 50 years, the Holodomor remained covered up, denied, and simply not talked about. Researchers are still uncovering more information about the time of terror. It went beyond being just a famine, though that itself was horrifying enough. It was part of a broad campaign uh, to quash any residue of Ukrainian autonomy and self-determination by attacking the deepest sources of that identity. As I mentioned, language, culture, and the deepest sources of that independence. The first reporter who actually mentioned Holodomor was Gareth Jones, who went to Ukraine, to the Soviet Ukraine, and he reported on the widespread famine. But nobody believed him at that time because of his opponent, who said that there is no famine in Ukraine, Walter Durant. He was more famous at that time, therefore, nobody believed to Gary Jones. And probably some of you have seen the film Mr. Jones, where they depict the history itself and the story about Garriott Jones. Another novelist, a British novelist, Arthur Koestler, said that he saw the revenges of the famine of the 1932-1933 in Ukraine, and he spent about 3 months in the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv, that is in the northeastern part. Everyone knows about Ukraine and the areas of Ukraine because of the war and during the famine. He wrote about his experiences in the God That Failed book. So if you are interested, you might find the book and read more about his experience there. Well, because of the Holodomor, Ukrainian was impacted for a long period. We lose a lot of Ukrainian leaders. We lose lots of educated classes and intelligent people. Intellectual, spiritual, economical, political area of Ukrainian life was impacted. 80% of the Ukrainian intellectuals were executed at that time. Out of 240 Ukrainian authors, 200 perished, and out of 82 linguists, 62 were executed. So that's not only about famine, but also about killing the nation itself. Entire villages were depopulated. That's what I mentioned. Russians brought some people from the remote villages, from the remote parts of Russia into Ukraine, and they just came into the houses, were fully equipped houses, and everything was there for free. The structure of the Ukrainian language, traditions, and the spirit of individualism and independence were very vivid. So that were the influences of Holodomor. So let's have a look how we continue to remember and commemorate the victims of Holodomor. Memory of the Holodomor did not completely vanish. Older family members would whisper stories to children and grandchildren with the warning to keep quiet about it. I remember my grandma, she lived in the central part of Ukraine. She said Holodomor was not very harsh in her area. She was a 3-year old, but she taught me which plants they ate and which plants are edible. I mean, wild plants. When we went to the forest, she would say, this is the the plants that were growing along the road. She said, when I was little, we used to eat them. And I tried, it was like uh, tasteless, but that's how people survived. Ukrainians in diaspora abroad, they of course faced not such restrictions of talking about the Holodomor. So they reported what they could in their newspapers. They organized protests and commemorations, and they promoted scholarly study of the Holodomor. Therefore, after 80 years after the strategy, we still remember and we continue to commemorate the victims of Holodomor. Every second Saturday of November is the day of commemoration of the Holodomor. I'm lucky enough to be placed right now in Edmonton because this is the city where the first Holodomor monument was erected. It was unveiled in 1983 on the 50th anniversary of the Holodomor, the genocidal famine in Ukraine. And you can see, when monuments are also part of the arts, and you can see how it is formed in this circle, broken circle is a special equipment that people used to grains. So they made flour using these stones, and the stone is broken. Actually, in Ukrainian villages, people would hide this equipment, so that the Soviet regime, when they came into the house, they would take all the food, they will take everything from people, leaving nothing. And if they find this equipment, they would break the equipment, or they would take the equipment with them. So this is very symbolic monument with this grain wheel, and you can see that lots of hands, like adults and children hands, and the same is on the back from the monument. Well, this is a very interesting approach towards describing monuments. There are monuments to the Holodomor all over the world, and this is the Holodomor monument in Kyiv. You can see a young girl holding 5 wheat of grains. Uh, Sorry, 5 grains of wheat, and well, you can see how tight her fist is, and all the little details of the monument. Again, that could be a great a topic for discussion. What does it symbolize? At the background, you can see the monument to the Holodomor in the form of the candle. Again, very symbolic to commemorate people. This is another monument in Manitoba, in Winnipeg. Again, the same picture, the same girl, and you can see that she stands on that wheel that is used to grain flour. Well, this is the monument in Washington, D.C. Again, if you can probably type in the chat what you can see. What you can see in the, well, what does it depict? Wheat field. Thank you, Stephanie. Again, what is the point of grain wheat? What is the point of putting, making such a monument? What does it symbolize? Again, that is the topic for discussion. And Ukrainians were not allowed to take any grain, any wheat from the field. They were still working hard in the field, but they were not allowed to take one one grain from the field, and the girl was holding 5 wheat of grains, and it means that if you take more than 5, you will be killed on spot by the Soviet regime. So there were the guardians around the field, and they would kill it. Yes, the monument in the DC. Yep. Where is it? I don't know. Somewhere downtown, I would say, if I'm not mistaken. All right. Thank you for your comments in the chat. All right. And if we speak about the art, the Ukrainian Canadian art historian Daria Darevich has pointed out, there were surprisingly few artistic representations of the Holodomor during most of the 20th century, especially compared to the incredibly outpouring of such representations for other genocides, especially for the Holocaust. One work from this period that some have interpreted as alluding to the Holodomor or its era is Man Running by Kazimir Malevich. Though he has typically listed as a Russian avant-garde artist in art history textbook, Malevich was in Kyiv. As usually, Russia always steals everything from other people. And Malevich was a Ukrainian-born artist to an ethnically Polish family. And he returned to Ukraine. He studied at the Kiev Art Institute and he taught there from 1928, 1930. But later on, he was removed from his position and he went to St. Petersburg in Russia. But he always was a Ukrainian artist. So the man running is considered to be the artwork that represents the Holodomor. The man is running from the Holodomor. His another art work is like that. What can you see in this picture? How would you describe this picture, this artwork? It's difficult, right, to comprehend people with no limbs. Thank you, Stephanie. Bodies, figures, but without hands and legs. Why so? Mm-hmm. Thank you. Well, the symbol in the face. Yes. Thank you, Colleen. You see the symbol in the face. What is it? The symbol of the Soviet Union, right? Hammer and the sickle. Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. Soviet symbol, exactly. So, again, Kazimir Malevich, the artistic depiction of genocide is challenging, right? Should horrors be depicted directly and graphically with skeletons and dead bodies? Or should the approach be more understated, providing the viewers or readers with just enough to allow them to create the image of horror in their own minds? Because we perceive horror differently based on our experience. While many artists and writers were quick to create a substantial body of work about other genocides, that is how Kazimir Malevich saw that. His painting contains subtle messages such as the lack of face, hands. It depicts armless and faceless figures who accused the authorities of the extermination of the peasantry. And you are right that this hammer and sickle just symbolizes the regime at that time. Here's another picture. You can see again, there is no arms, but there are legs. And this is also very symbolic. And that is how he saw the Holodomor. And you can see the blue and yellow background, which were the colors and are the colors of Ukraine. And that was very well, surprisingly, but his work, his artworks were dated wrongly before the Holodomor. So they were dated as if they were written before the Holodomor, but actually they were written during the Holodomor. So again, lots of lies from Russia and trying to change the history. Another artist who was very famous and who started depicting the Holodomor was Mikhailo Dmytrenko. While the work is not in a traditional realistic style, the elements are historically appropriate. I put the photo evidence from that time, and you can see how symbolic the picture is. The photographs of grain requisitions in the 1930s show very similar sacks of grain in very similar wagons, also drawn by horses or other animals. Uh, Even the requisitions uniforms are historically correct. The figure of the famine victim echoes similar figures in the works of Pevney and Kovalenko. Taking grain from the villagers at the bread union in Kaharlik village, Kyiv Oblast, in 1932. So again, it's a great um, artwork that could help your learners to reflect, to see deeper beyond the picture. Another story that I would like, another project, another approach that I would like to mention is in Ukrainian culture, we are not allowed, and this is from generation to generation, to throw away leftovers. My grandparents never threw any leftovers. These were either fed to the cattle or like we tried to cook or we tried to prepare food so that there are no leftovers, especially bread. And this project is called I Still Feel Sorry When I Throw Away Food. Grandma used to tell me stories about Holodomor. Right now, I'm living with my mother-in-law. She's staying with us due to the war. And, like we do have leftovers, like in everyday family. And we put them into the green bin, and then it is taken to the other green beans, like this processing of food factories. And she said, like, how come? You can't throw bread. Like, it's a sin. You can't do that. So the famous Ukrainian artists decided to have this project in memory of their grandmother, of their grandparents. So the starting point of this project was the personal sense of guilt, which accompanies the acts of throwing food away. As I said, this feeling is common to all generations. So Leah Dostileva and Andriy Dostilev asked themselves why they are ashamed to throw away food. These are just leftovers on a plate. And they answered themselves that that is because of generational memory passed to them. So what they do, they spent 2 months conducting visual research using post-photographic practices, recording traces of leftover food. And these traces, along with the Ukrainian landscapes, became parts of the collages. So you can see a carrot on the right, you can see bread, you can see the burger, how they decay within the time and what traces they leave while they decay. So that again might be a very interesting project for the learners using pictures of decaying food and why we are looking at that. Actually, they presented their research in the book and which is available online and it's rather affordable, I think. And it has a little bit of stories, a little bit of description of the work behind how they used art approach, this artistic approach to speak about the Holodomor and what impact it had, and whether we felt guilty and ashamed to throw away food. Back to the artwork, what can you see here? It's called Zemlya, the earth. How you can depict it? What do you see? What's your feeling when you look at this artwork? You can, the person looks sad, but tied to the land. Thank you, Kim. Collapse in despair, hug in the earth. Thank you, Stephanie. So we can see different feelings and also pay attention to the shapes and the color of the painting. So, and expression of feelings of hunger and bare field. Is it agony, starvation, pain, sadness? Barefooted. Thank you, George. So she's wearing a coat, but she's barefooted. And that is because they could not afford to have some boots. Or maybe they sold the boots to get a loaf of bread. That's why many Ukrainians do not have lots of heritage, lots of items passed from generation to generation, because whatever valuables we would exchange them for food. Therefore, food is very precious for Ukrainians. Even for me, uh, though my generation did not have that, like actually they did. My father was starved, was sent, was displaced to the Siberia, but and he spent 7 years in the Siberia. So this starvation, this generational memory is very impactful. So this large canvas is masterfully executed with the soul in the foreground, portrayed in the three-dimensional texture. You can see this dimension using extremely heavy granular impasto that can only be fully appreciated by viewing the work in person. And actually, it is so dim. You can see the colors are not bright, right? Unlike some of other works in this exhibition, this painting is non-narrative and in some ways ambiguous. So we don't know whether the woman is dead or merely unconscious in despair. And is she a famine victim? But we can only guess. But you can also see something tiny in the corner of this canvas. What is it? I know it might be challenging to see. There is a little flower that symbolizes a hope, a symbol of hope amid this bare field. You can see a small green plant with exposed roots, and these roots are very tiny, but it looks like this flower can easily be blown by the wind. And do you know the name for this flower? Thank you, Colleen. So this is, well, actually, it grows everywhere here in Canada as well. It's called forget-me-not. Forget-me-nots flowers are a symbol of the Holodomor. And if you speak about the Holodomor, you would see that there are some projects where people pass over to each other these little paper flowers, forget-me-nots, and so that we don't forget the victims of the Holodomor. So again, looking at this artwork, we can look at it from different angles. And maybe if we look at the canvas, we would not notice this little forget-me-nots. But they are here, and this is the symbol of the Holodomor. Bondarenko also presents a very distinctive depiction of the horrors faced by the victim of Holodomor. Instead of the scenes of death, he focuses indirectly on the individuals who managed to survive by asking what is that helped them to cheat death while their relatives and friends perished. In this book, he depicted flowers. That's what I mentioned about my granny, who told me what fruits, what flowers, what plants they ate during the Holodomor. And Bondarenko, the author of this book, he depicted the various plants and animals that people were forced to eat in order to survive. And in the title, in this page, you can see dandelions. Those plants that we have all over on our among the green grass on our lawns, which we try to kill, right? So, but people were digging out the roots and were cooking dandelions so that they survive. And this book is full of different plants that were eaten by Ukrainians at that time. And following that project, that cookbook project, there was a group of young people in Netherlands who decided to cook some dishes like that people used to eat in Ukraine, and then they were serving the food to people during the in the street and asking them how it tastes, and people were surprised that this dish could even be eaten because these were corn pipes, they were pipe corns. These were bark from the trees, like stewed from the bark, like some very ridiculous food, but actually these were pancakes from the grass or mashed grass instead of potatoes, or bread from mashed grass. Um, and pine cones and needles and other dishes that Ukrainians would eat. So again, another project that might be very inspiring for students to have, like look around. What kind of plants can you eat? How would you envision cooking that? And thank you, Colleen, for posting in the chat that your grandmother always cooked dandelions. Mhm. And that is from Italy. That's very interesting. Thank you. Well, I do see dandelions in our grocery stores, but yeah, for Ukrainians, it's something that would remind them about the Holodomor because there was nothing else left. And I do want you to hear the voice of the Holodomor survivor. She survived two Holodomors, and she survived. She is now surviving two wars. She survived the Second World War, and she is now surviving the war in Ukraine. There are some titles that you can read, but she's speaking Ukrainian. I just want you to hear her voice. I will stop sharing my presentation and I will share the audio with you because I find that her voice is so impactful. Okay. Okay, I can't share with the sound somehow. Kim, do you think we can share? No, maybe not. The sound
You
doesn't.
sh you
Mm.
should be able to normally,
Mm-hmm. Well,
um,
that's fine. I will share the link for you. Want others to hear sound coming. Well, it
If
doesn't
you
allow
just
me.
share the tab, it should work. If you don't share it on your presentation, you just go to the tab, it should work.
Mm-hmm.
Be able to hear it.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I want to do, but it doesn't allow me to share. Well, let's try. Anyway, I'm here. So let's see whether you can hear the voice and you will tell me, okay?
no, we're not hearing it.
Okay. Okay, no problem. I will share the link in the chat so that you have it. Okay, I also had another video where I I just find it very impactful, and this is another story where a German, you can hear the music, and actually this is only the music that you can hear, but you can read the subtitles. A German was forcefully moved to Ukraine during the Holodomor, and she described her, well, not she, but the book describes her experience while being in Ukraine. So the girl again reads in Ukrainian, but you can see the background and you can see the shadow, and overall exposure, and the picture just speak louder than 1,000 words. her trace, her life, her fate is not well. Nobody knows where she ended up, but her survival. Her grandson started researching and finding where she is. So he did not manage to yet, but they have some memories, they have some pictures, and they're still looking for where she is buried, where she was she in the exile, where is she? They can't find her. But again, I will share the link with you in the chat so that you could probably see this video, which is very, very much impactful. With the English subtitles, you can always understand what is going on. And based on this story, there is a real film that was created and was released in 2021. So this is a very, so I'm going back to my slides. Please bear with me. So this is again a story of Magda, who was forcefully moved to Ukraine because she got married. She fell in love with a Ukrainian soldier, and at that time, that was not absolutely acceptable in Germany to fall in love with the enemy, with the Soviet soldier. So she had to move to Ukraine. And okay, so where is my presentation? Here is my presentation. So back to my slides. So again, this is a story of Magda. And here is the film that you can probably watch. This film is based on the story of Magda. I haven't seen the film. I don't know what it is about, how realistic it is, but please let me know if you watch it and if you would love to watch it. So again, this is the story of Magda and who fall in love with a Soviet soldier and had to move to Ukraine. And unfortunately, she went through Holodomor. Another very famous Holodomor artist is Lydia Bodnar Balahutrak, and she lives in the US. So you might visit her exhibition, and you might have seen her pictures. In her pictures, she uses a variety of materials, not only oil, not only paint, but also a variety of different materials to demonstrate, to express her feelings, her emotions, and to tell the story. My favorite is this one, and it is in Washington in the church. So you can go and visit. You can see that it has a little bit of embroidery, embroidered towel, embroidered shirt. You know that Ukrainians. Our national clothes are Ukrainian vyshyvanka, Ukrainian embroidered shirt. And as I said, many Ukrainian vyshyvanka were buried into earth, and we just lost them because when Russians came, the Soviets came into the house, they would call you nationalists because of having vyshyvanka, and they would kill the whole family or send you to Siberia or just to torture you, or they did not stop at anything. Therefore people buried their treasures, buried their valuable things, and the most valuable things for Ukrainians would be vyshyvankas. So, and it is in Washington, D.C. So this one is very vague, and you can hardly see through the picture, but if you look closely at the picture, you would see that at the background, there is something growing on the, like, after famine, after the Holodomor. We are trying to forget, but our memory still presents something for us. And it's also very powerful artwork that could speak louder than thousands words. And again, I will share this Lamentations link, exhibition link with you. It was in Texas University College Station, and that was her artwork. And you see how big the canvas is. So it's very powerful. And she lives in the US, so probably we can get in touch with her, and maybe she could present and have some workshops with the learners. That was while preparing for that, I discovered this artist, and it would be very powerful to meet with her. And this is the project that I had with my students here in Canada. As I said, these are forget-me-nots, and they are symbols of the Holodomor. The idea was I went from school to school. I had the map of Ukraine, and while being at school, I asked the students to pin a forget-me-not on the map of Ukraine so that we remember the victims of Holodomor. Even though the Holodomor happened in the eastern and central part of Ukraine, but there were also some cases of Holodomor all over the whole Ukraine. So that was very powerful, and we've got this map full of forget-me-nots, and it was displayed in various administration areas. And very impactful for students as well, because everyone contributed to this project. I would like to mention that not only Ukrainians suffered from the Holodomor, there were many other countries who suffered from Holodomor. And this project, this picture is done by Saulia Suleimanova. She is from Kazakhstan. As in Ukraine in 1932, 1933, in Kazakhstan was marked by a tragedy as well. Asharshelik is now famine sounds in the Kazakh language. So the artist used different shopping bags and tea bags and other pieces of leftovers and created a picture. The technique of cellophane painting. So she took not a canvas, but cellophane, a shopping bag, and then she stuck the different figures of people, but created from multicolored plastic bags. It's also very powerful to demonstrate this strategy. So she used tea bags, bread wrappers, chocolate wrappers, coffee bags, everything that would normally go to garbage. She would put on that picture and create different figures of people. So again, that is just an idea that you can use with the learners. That how can you create artworks? Do you think that it is possible? They would say, no, not possible. That's like, but we can use different things, different tools to create an impactful artworks. And again, different tools, different techniques, strategies that can help learners to understand complicated historical events through arts. We can have pictures, posters, teaching boards, art supplies, and for example, like, what do you think people in Ukraine grew in the fields in 1930s? So the learners would come up with different answers probably. Do you think they grew pineapples? Of course, no. What did they grow? Grain, corn, and then eliciting and brainstorming, and then showing them some pictures how it looked like, and then asking them to depict how would they see it from different perspectives. And as I said, the Holodomor happened not only in Ukraine, but in some other countries. And it is crucially important for us to prevent others from occurring in our lifetime, so that we don't have any genocides, any Holodomors like in our history. There are lots of researchers, lots of links that I would be happy to share with you. You can see the Bitter Harvest is one of the movie that is very, very famous and very popular. It's not an easy thing to watch. Famine 33, Harvest of Despair, Red Famine, Stalin's War on Ukraine, and Magda, the new film that I've just mentioned. And there are lots of resources. There is the Holodomor Museum in Manitoba, who has lots of educational materials for teachers, for parents, for adults. And there is a museum as well there that has testimonies from Holodomor survivors, and you can hear the voices, because I think that the voices are very impactful. You can feel and you can hear lots of emotions in the voices. So thank you, everyone. Do you have any questions, any comments?
Well, Natalia, thank you so much. That was such an informative presentation, and I love the way that you brought in really different forms of art, because it's so important for our students to see that art doesn't only look one way. And so I really appreciated the variety that you shared with us. Colleen put a question, is the
Mhm.
term Holodomor only used in reference to Ukraine?
That's a very good question. I would say yes. We would probably, well, as I said, for Kazakhstan it's a very complicated word. I need to go back and see how they call it Holodomor. It's a different word in the Kazakh language. It's called Asharshilik, Holodomor, and that's because, as I mentioned earlier, it consists of two words: holod, famine, and moretik, kill. So killing by famine. So that is a Ukrainian word. For other nationalities, I would say we use genocide or famine, but the Holodomor is the Ukrainian. Yep. Thank you, Colin. Yeah, yeah, exactly. The Manitoba Museum has done lots of researches, and again, maybe because a lot of people moved to Manitoba after the Second World War and after the Holodomor, they settled down in Manitoba, and therefore we have lots of memories, lots of evidence there. Yes, Manitoba, I would say they are ahead of everyone.
And I think that's important when you're talking with students to think about, they might see a memorial or a monument, but how did it get there and why is it there? And, considering when,
Mhm.
like in the case of Manitoba, where people have moved there, and who brings that about. So a lot of great questions that could come from that as well.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you.
Natalia, can you go back to the slide that you had with the list of resources, that last slide?
Sure.
Are those are lesson plans or units?
There are curriculum guides,
Right, okay.
and actually, they don't. There are only names, but there are no links.
Okay.
I might share the links with you after the webinar. I will send them to Kim, and she would share. But I can definitely share the presentation so that you can take a picture and probably Google by name.
Right.
Because if you go to Manitoba, they have lots of things there. And there are lots of educational materials so that you could. So these
Mhm.
are
That's a
websites,
lot. Yeah.
a lot. And actually, you can see the links. There are lots of researches done also in the US. They have some recordings of the webinars with the researchers, with the eyewitnesses. Unfortunately, we don't have the eyewitnesses anymore because, well, because of the age. They
Right.
usually die, or they are maybe Holodomor survivors. I would say like their generation, like their first generation would probably be
Mhm.
the children of
Right.
the
In New
Holodomor
Jersey, we're
survivors.
looking to create a curriculum guide that we don't have. We don't have one on this, the Holodomor. So this will be a
Okay.
very good resource.
Okay, I can send you the link, Colleen, about
Yeah.
that. Yep. Because
Thank you.
Holodomor is part of the curriculum, elective curriculum in Alberta.
Hmm.
Thank you.
Excellent.
I'm looking to translate Innocent's question, which is in French.
Okay.
Let me try it here on Google Translate. So given the current situation in Ukraine in particular and the world in general, is there a probability that the Holodomor will happen again? And what preventative measures can be taken?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Well, I'm not sure that the Holodomor might happen again, because when the Russians come now into the villages, they kill Ukrainians. They don't leave them alive. So no chances because of that only. But the very similar events happen right now. Yeah, the history repeats itself, and therefore it's crucially important to prevent. How can we prevent? I don't know. I don't have the answer to this question, because we are living through the same events. I can't go to my country. Many people can't go back because of the atrocities and all the stuff happening. Thank you
Exactly.
for this question.
Yeah, thank you, Innocent. That's a great question. Okay, well, thank you everybody for joining us. We do have a follow-up survey for you to fill out, and there it is in the chat. We'd love to hear your feedback. Nataliia, again, thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing your time and being so generous with us. We appreciate it. And thank you
Thank
to
you,
all the
Kim.
participants. Yes,
Mhm.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It was my pleasure. And like when we speak about the events happening, it helped us to understand that it matters and somebody cares. Thank you so much. It's crucially important for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Nataliia and Colleen, Matthew, if you'll check your email boxes, we will have a little meeting after. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.